Take On Me is one of those songs that you listen to and you think, yeah, there's no reality in which this song could not be a smash hit. It's quite simply a synth-pop banger. #1 hit in the US and 25 other countries, #2 in the UK. It's certified gold in 6 countries, multiple platinums in 6 countries. It's also had more than 2 billion streams on Spotify. And the music video has become one of the most iconic of all time, largely thanks to MTV's championing of it back in the golden era. And people love it in the old karaoke bars, don't they? But did you know that this song actually flopped 3 times before it became a hit? And did you know the song has punk rock roots, if you can believe? And the band members were struggling so much financially before it became a hit, they couldn't even afford to buy food. This one is a fascinating story, so buckle in, and if you love music history like me, you'll probably want to subscribe and join our pack. And maybe consider supporting me on Patreon as well. It helps me to continue making videos like these, and you'll get your name listed alongside these very nice smelling people below. Link is in the description. Right then, let's go back to the 70s and to Norway, a country that gave the world not only Aha, but also the cheese slicer. True fact. Best friends Paul Waaktaar-Savoy and Magne Furuholmen are around 15 or 16 and are in a band together called Bridges. I've probably just butchered their names there, so I'll just stick to Paul and Magne from now on. One day, Magne writes a ridiculously catchy synth riff and takes it to his bandmates and says, "Hey up lads, what do you think about this riff?" Now famously, of course, Norwegian people speak with the exact same accent as someone from the north of England. His band members said, "Alright Magne, me old mucker, it's a good riff, but it sounds a bit too poppy." You see, Bridges was a bit more of a punk band than a pop band, but instead of binning off the riff completely, they turned up the punk dial on the rest of the song and, well, the song Miss Eerie was born, the first incarnation of Take On Me. Performing one night in Oslo, Bridges caught the attention of a certain vocalist in the audience, Morten Harket. I had always wanted to make music on a big scale, but never knew how it was going to happen, until I saw a band in Oslo called Bridges. I was stunned. They had everything. The only thing they didn't have was me. I knew I needed to join, not for my own sake, but for the band's. I knew I was a necessary ingredient. Morten would of course eventually join the band, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Bridges disbanded, but Paul and Magne were determined to make it as musicians. They had a game plan from an early age, and they knew if they wanted to be big, they'd have to move to where it was all happening, and that was London. So for a year or two, the pair lived in London, desperately trying to make a thing of their music, but they didn't have much luck. Even though things go from bad to worse in terms of living standards and having to do jobs to just survive in an interim period, we always had that belief that whatever we had going musically was somehow worthwhile to pursue. And London was where we wanted to be, and where we thought we needed to be. Now, before leaving their home country of Norway, they had a more romanticised vision of London in the 1960s and 70s. The sheer volume of fresh and innovative music felt overwhelming, almost like an education in itself. Intimidating, yes, but also exciting. Without a traditional band format, they experimented with various instruments until they achieved a sound that worked. Synthesizers, along with drum machines like the Lindrum, allowed them to create music in rented demo studios, shaping their evolving style out of necessity. Despite being capable musicians who could play multiple instruments, they lacked a fixed lineup and had no live performances. Unable to legally work in London, they arrived on tourist visas with a somewhat naive belief that success would come quickly. With no luck in London other than producing bits and bobs that would eventually form parts of Take On Me, the pair then returned to Norway and joined forces with vocalist Morten Harket. The trio spent a few months working in the basement of Paul's parents' house, getting to know each other and building their musical style. It was there that Harket first heard the riff for Take On Me, although it wasn't called that at the time.
Max plays that on the piano and Paul strums along on the guitar. And instantly I know that this is it. This is the key to the world.
They used to nickname this song the Juicy Fruit song because the riff reminded them of bubblegum TV adverts. This time though, they had 4 or 5 demos under their belt, including a song called Lesson 1, which they recorded in 1982 and sounded like this.
Say after me, I'm happy, happy, let's get me hip, hip hooray, slowly learning that life is okay.
Sounds familiar, right? They would then rename this song to All's Well That Ends Well and Moves With the Sun. Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? They finally came to their senses though and landed on Take On Me. Thank God. Of course, the lyrics and the music would evolve and change over time, but the basic tone and sound was definitely there. What wasn't there yet was the famous chorus and descending notes. That would come later. In London, the three were banging on all the doors, desperate to find the right person to listen to their songs, desperate for a breakthrough. And I mean desperate. We had no money. We were literally starving. It started to get ugly. Paying for food wasn't an option. I remember nearly fainting in the streets. It was affecting my mental state. They spent the last of their money on a plan to record 5 songs in 2 days, so they booked some time in a studio called Rendezvous Studios in Sydenham. They picked that studio because it had instruments inside already. They had sold most of their equipment back in Oslo in order to afford the move to London, so all they had was a couple of acoustic guitars between them. This studio also had a Space Invaders machine, which was a definite added bonus. Another machine in the studio was a Prophet 5 synthesizer. Now this was a game changer for the group. That was the moment where we started to seriously reshape our sound into a more synth-based programmed variety, just by necessity. This synthesizer kicked the band into another gear. The Prophet 5 really suited the music because there were so many sort of atmospheric sounds. You just put your fingers on it and you had lots of ideas coming at you. I think before the first album was done, we probably had songs for 3 albums demoed in that studio. So it was a big period for us inspiration-wise. It was also there that they would meet studio manager John Ratcliffe. John heard what the band were doing and decided it was rather interesting. He was so interested that he gave the band extra studio time for free. But the catch was it had to be overnight. So for a few days, the band was sleeping in a basement in southeast London on polystyrene sheets during the day and recording and rehearsing in the studio during the night. There, they recorded an updated demo of Take On Me, and it's in this first demo we hear that famous ascending chorus with the ridiculous high note. Paul had the idea of really using my vocal range in the chorus, having notes rising in octaves, like Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra. John Ratcliffe was increasingly impressed with the group and offered them something that would change their lives forever. He offered to send some demos to a man named Terry Slater. Terry had previously worked at EMI and was now looking for the next big band to manage. John would often send demos to Terry. Lots of hopefuls would record demos at his small studio in London, but there was something different with this band in particular. Terry and John formed TJ Management, the T and J of course standing for Toaster Jedi, I think. And just like that, a-ha had a proper management team. Terry was able to land them a record deal with Warner Brothers, with $125,000 of advance royalties for their first album. Andrew Wickham was the man who signed them.
I had a call from Terry Slater saying, look, I've got this band, they're from Norway, they're called a-ha, would you come and see them? And I couldn't believe my ears when I heard Morten Harket sing. I thought, how can somebody who looks like a film star sound like Roy Orbison? So I thought, this is unbelievable. I have to sign this. So I signed it.
So, signed to Warner Brothers, they were assigned to their UK section, WEA Records, to be looked after and developed. Finally, things were on the up. This was their big breakthrough, right? Well, no, not quite yet. Warner Brothers suggested a producer by the name of Tony Mansfield. He was an expert in computerized synthesizers. So it seemed like a no-brainer, right? a-ha agreed and they all went about recording the band's debut album, and of course their debut single, in Eel Pie Studio in Twickenham. Yeah, that's the actual name of the studio. Twickenham has a weird history to do with eels and pies. Anyway, things didn't go too well recording that album. Mansfield took a-ha's simple demos and added layers of electronic effects, pushing Morten's vocals far into the background. This was completely different from what the band had envisioned, and Warner Brothers agreed it had lost the magic from the original Rendezvous Studio demos. As delays piled up, the financial strain became too much, leading to a complete breakdown in the partnership between Terry Slater and producer Mansfield's manager. So Mansfield left the project. Frustrated, a few months later they teamed up with their old friend John Ratcliffe and engineer Neil King to remix and largely re-record the entire album, including Take On Me. This process took time, and in the music industry, time means money. Eventually the album was finished, Take On Me was released as a single, only in Europe, and a music video was quickly put together. It was a rushed job, to say the least. And after all that effort and excitement, Take On Me flopped, only reaching 137 in the UK. In fact, according to the band, Take On Me was released 3 times in 1984, with all 3 of them flopping. It did reach number 3 in Norway though, which is nice. The album was put on hold while they sorted the mess out. But not all hope was lost. Andy Wickham had introduced the band to high-profile Warner creative executive Jeff Aroff.
Well, Andy Wickham made an appointment with me and said, I need to show you something I have. We're trying to figure out what to do with this band. He played me the song, which was very captivating, but very different than anything that I'd ever heard before, quite frankly. And then he showed me a picture of the band, and it was like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
With Jeff Aroff now involved, the first Take On Me video was scrapped. a-ha was given the chance to re-record the song, and Terry Slater persuaded producer Alan Tarney to take on the project. Terry had wanted Alan Tarney to produce all along, but for varying reasons was unable to until now. Warner Brothers US were now investing a lot into getting this song absolutely perfect. They were sure Alan Tarney was the man for it.
I think the initial version of Take On Me that a-ha made themselves, that's what the record company loved, and Terry Slater, they loved that. So all I did was basically made a version which resembled their original version as much as I possibly could.
Using a Juno 60 to find that perfect sound, the new recording had a much cleaner, more expansive sound, with a coda section replacing the earlier quick fade-out. And just like that, the version of Take On Me that the world knows and loves was complete. Hooray! Finally, things were on the up, again. This was their big breakthrough, again, right? Well, no, not quite yet. Again. The album Hunting High and Low was now finished, and the new version of Take On Me was re-released in England. However, the London office were a bit miffed that their big American brothers had muscled in and interfered with things. They also didn't really have much incentive to make a-ha succeed anyway, because they were signed by Warner Brothers in the US, and were only being developed and looked after by the branch in the UK. So they gave absolutely no promotional support to the release, and so the song flopped again. To say the band was devastated would be an understatement. The 3 idealists who once believed that talent alone would take them to the top had faced so many setbacks, wasted so much time, and endured so much disappointment, they were on the verge of giving up altogether. Looking back, they saw the toll their journey had taken, not just on themselves, but on those around them. John Ratcliffe, who had risked everything to support them, ended up divorcing his wife, relying on pills and alcohol and suffering from high blood pressure. Meanwhile, Tony Mansfield had been under so much pressure from Warner Brothers that he nearly had a nervous breakdown. Seeing people's hopes, money, and well-being sacrificed for their career, the band decided to take a break. Paul went to visit a friend in Boston, convinced that a-ha was about to be dropped from Warner Brothers for good. And since he was already in the US, he decided to check for himself and made a call to the label. To his surprise, the voice on the other end responded with excitement. They said, "It's great, we love a-ha and you're now our top priority. We're making a brand new video for Take On Me and it's going to be fantastic." Jeff Aroff refused to give up on this song. He saw Harket as a strikingly handsome man, perfect for the image-focused MTV era. Additionally, he recognised that a captivating video could spark the public's imagination.
The idea behind sometimes a successful video was to do something visually that will get enough airplay that it makes the song an earworm just by the fact that it is ubiquitous.
And it certainly worked. This video was the single saving grace for the band. Without it, they would have faded into obscurity. God bless you, MTV. You don't need me to tell you what that music video was. I mean, you've seen it, right? Revolutionary mix of sketch animation and real-life action. It's one of the most iconic music videos ever made. And it's all thanks to two animators, Michael Patterson and Candice Reckinger. A short student film of Michael Patterson's called Commuter had caught the attention of Jeff Aroff, and Jeff enlisted his services along with legendary music video director Steve Barron. For 16 weeks, all we did was sleep and work on the video. Me in the living room, Candice in the kitchen. We made around 2,000 drawings. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. We watched many people rip it off year after year. The video had countless plays on MTV, injecting it right into the veins of every American when it debuted in 1985. The video took home 6 awards at the 1986 MTV Video Music Awards. 6? That's just greedy if you ask me. The single was released again 3 months after the video, and boom, that was it. It rocketed up the charts and flew free forevermore. Aha became a household name, and Take On Me became a classic track of the 80s. So MTV saved Aha from being a flop. Again. Similar to how MTV saved Come Dancing by the Kinks. That too might have flopped without MTV. And guess what? I've done a whole video on the story of that song too. It's fascinating. Click over there and watch it next.